Welcome to the upstreamlife.com, and I'm your host, Vishal Krishna. Today I'm going to be talking about the future of living. We've all heard about flexi work and its impact on companies, but I want to know how the young and old are generally living in their homes today. How are they buying homes? It's really interesting for me. Investment management company Colliers said in a report that co-living is a segment that's expected to have 450,000 beds by 2024, mainly in the organized sector, more than doubling from 210,000 beds at the end of 2021. Co-living occupancy is expected to recover in 2022 as the workforce expands and the student population grows and they look for organized, modern accommodation. But let me tell you, these questions I cannot answer because I have always lived in my own house, right? I'm a bit of a conservative person. I've always had a good life, a easy life, not migrated. I'm from Bangalore, although I've gone to work across the world. But answering all those questions for you will be Prabhat Kumar of Your Own Room. Again, pardon me, the company is called Your Own Room, a company that started off as a co-living company, but is now a residential real estate management company. Prabhat has in the past worked with HP, Wipro, Emphasis, and Zensar. He's also finished his Sloan Masters from Stanford Graduate School of Business. He started Your Own Room in 2016 when everyone was talking about co-working, but he focused on co-living, and he's going to tell us how the sector has panned out over the last 7 years and what can we look forward to the sector becoming in 2025. Prabhat, how are you?
Perfect, Vishal. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be in your podcast, and thank you for inviting me.
No, it's a pleasure to talk to you because you've done this for 7 years. It's been a very difficult industry. A lot of people have burned cash, a lot of people have disappeared, but you hang around and you've now gone from co-living to residential real estate asset management. But I want to start off with your past. You've been in the US in the past. You were there for more than a decade, right? Can I talk about your childhood because nobody knows that? I want to talk about who were your influences. How did you become an engineer? And you went on to work in the US. How did that happen? You worked in Wipro, of course. You worked in HP in the US. Can you tell us a little bit about that life, please?
Sure. So I grew up in Vizag. That's where I spent most of my childhood and my schooling. My dad used to work for a Vizag steel plant. And post that, I did my engineering from BITS, Ranchi. And I think that's where I started developing an interest in computer science. I started developing an interest more in corporate and so on. And post that, I've kind of worked with various technologies company. You mentioned a few, Wipro, HP being some of the big ones. And this was both in India as well as in the US. And I was also lucky to work in Southeast Asia for a short while. And just before I started Your Own Room, I was working for Exchanging, which is a British IT services company, which is now part of DXC. There I was running a $30 million P&L. But then it's been a very interesting journey all the way from Vizag to BIT Mesra, all the way to US and various corporate life, and now running a startup. So I'm really enjoying the experience, and I've kind of built it one after the other.
But who are your inspirations? You mentioned your dad was a major inspiration. He was in the Vizag steel plant. Did he push you to go abroad? Did he push you to go do an MBA abroad or business education? What was your time? What did you learn in America, and that you came back with an idea saying, "Hey, this kind of thing can work in India as well. Let me go build a business." How did that happen?
Well, I think I just went with the flow, and that's how life kind of took me to various places. And if you really look at it, the time when I went to the US, I think most of my classmates from Mesra went to the US. We are all working for different companies. But then I think the turning point was probably my education at Stanford, because that was the first time that I was able to break away from the conventional way of thinking. I mean, normally what happens is the conventional way is you just keep going one step after the other and so on and be happy about it. But Stanford, I think, made me take a step back, relook at everything. And I really want to do something of my own all the time. But I was also very clear that I want to do something where I could create a larger impact and run a more meaningful business, and something that everybody could say that, yes, this is a problem and you're solving the problem and so on. And that and in my last job, I did have some good experience in commercial real estate, working with clients like CBRE and Cushman and Wakefield. And that's where I started developing an interest in the entire, what I would call managed rentals, managed real estate rentals. And I felt that if there are companies like CBRE and JLL and CNW that have built billion-dollar business globally in the commercial space, why couldn't I do something similar to them? And that's where my inspiration came from building a business like Your Own Room. I've also been a big fan of, I would call them management gurus like Ram Charan, etc. I've been kind of reading their books, and what I've realized is that there's a certain way you build business. Right, business is about strong business principles, market needs, business velocity, cash flow, profitability, and so on. So those have been like the underpinning principles. And keeping everything in mind, I've kind of said, let me do something new on my own. And this is how I started Your Own Room about 6 years ago.
Okay, let's set the context for the audience. If you look at the US, a lot of people leave the small towns and come into big cities, either in California or towards the Washington region or towards the East Coast, any of the cities, New York, Washington, DC. And there, a lot of the kids, spend a lot of money, at least 45% of their income on living, right? And it is expensive, super expensive, and many of them don't get good housing. Was that the hypothesis for India as well, for you to start this business, that yes, a lot of children after their graduation will go from the small towns to cities like Bombay, Bangalore, Pune, Chennai, Hyderabad, Delhi. Was that your thought processes at the time, saying that these kids need affordable housing, or was it a hunch that okay, anyway, kids are going to move out of home in major cities and they'll want to live on their own? And what kind of trend did you see? What was the sociology behind your startup?
See, when I started the company, I started with a slightly narrow vision, or a more focused vision. I wouldn't call it narrow, a more focused vision. And it was exactly what you just mentioned. I looked at it from two sides. I looked at it as there are so many people coming to cities, and eventually, 4 to 6 cities in India where there's most action going on. And most of them struggle to get good accommodation, safe, secure, etc. And keep in mind, we have limitations in terms of our infrastructure of cities. And on the other hand, you have a lot of homes which are lying idle, empty, under leveraged, unsold, halfway through the construction, and so on. So I kind of looked at it more as a supply demand problem, and that's how I kind of started it. But what has happened over the course of years, I've realized that that is only maybe 20% of what I was trying to solve. And when you mentioned this very interesting point about transition from co-living to residential real estate asset management, I think it is that transition from 20% to 100% now, where the problem is a much bigger problem. It is not just limited to just co-living. It is to do with residential real estate. And along with residential real estate, you have rental management, you have property management, and co-living is only one, I would call it like a demography or singles. When you say co-living, we talk about singles. So imagine people in various stages of life. You start as a student, you need a place. You move on as a single working professional, you need a place, and co-living is a solution. Then you're a married professional, you need a place, you need a family home. And then you become a senior citizen, and you need maybe a senior citizen home or a senior living home, which is more friendly for seniors. So technically, there are these four demography, and everybody who's into this space picks up certain demographies, and they focus on providing the right product over there. And our product started with co-living, but today I think it has evolved. It went from co-living to family, and then from co-living to family, we would call it more of rental management. We've also started looking at it from an asset perspective. So there is a rental perspective, there's an asset perspective. So we become a full-blown rental property management company. And now we look at ourselves, as I said, residential asset management company, because we are fundamentally solving the needs of an asset owner. An asset owner could be someone who has a single home, multiple homes, a building. And most of the asset owners, or a good chunk of them, look at this as a financial product, which means you need to make sure that you're taking care of the financial product and you're giving good returns. And that's how we started kind of building things, etc. And rental is nothing but part of that entire process of making sure that we're giving them the return. So the business has also evolved. starting from co-living to something much bigger, which is residential real estate asset management.
Yeah, I want to go into that deeper. Let's start off with, how did you find the name Your Own Room? What, I mean, was that because of the earlier co-living kind of thought process? That's how it started. And let's also figure out why co-living, for all its worth and narrative, is not really a, is it a good business to be in? Is it a different business? I like the fact that you're talking about an operating system for living, which is what the residential real estate management company is. That I can give you a home for every age group, right? Regardless of your work cycle. And you're also helping people with properties churn their property, which is phenomenal, right? But when you started off, talk about the name, Your Own Room. How did that come about? Why the promise of co-living, and how did that change after that?
Yeah. So when we started, it was very clear it was only co-living, and that's how Your Own Room came, because Your Own Room basically stood for, something which is very personalized. So Your stands for personalized, and Room stands for, that space. So in a shared space, you're giving a private space, and that's how we came out with the name. And the focus was, as I mentioned, co-living. Now, I just want to also clarify here that the focus did not go away from co-living, right? Co-living continues to be one of our core focus area. But what we also realize is that there's more than co-living, and we've also gone beyond co-living to family because it's a natural progression. So we've picked these two demography, which is co-living and family, and we've started building our solutions. Now, this is from a demand perspective, but from a supply perspective. So remember, this business has to be looked at it always from a demand and supply. Demand is coming from these segments, but supply is coming from an asset owner. So we have to do a very solid balancing act of satisfying both of them. And in our entire scheme of things, we look at owners as a partner in delivering a service to an end consumer who finally pays for the service, and that's how everybody makes money in the entire process.
Yeah, I also want to know that your evolution, right? Starting off with the promise that you can live with like-minded people, you have luxury amenities. It started off in a youthful feeling. At what stage did you know that, look, I have to create this as an operating system, and I have to go after two sides of the customers: the business guy, the business side, which is basically people who have properties, and the demand side, right? Which is basically families. Geriatric care, if I want to call it senior living. Then also the youngsters who, like you said, co-living continues to be part of this. So co-living is a part of the operating system that you offer. How did that shift happen? I'm very curious to know that. I want to ask you this in perspective also, and please bring that in. A lot of people came into this segment. A lot of people burnt money. A lot of people, suffered, closed down shop also. But you've hung on. Being an entrepreneur is not easy. We spoke about that over our lunch that we had. How did you
Absolutely.
manage that? How did you manage that?
So if you look at the journey, you can look at this journey in maybe over a period of 10 years, right? We've already gone through 6 years, and imagine the next 4 years. So if you take a 10-year view, when we started, co-living was the hot thing. That was a real opportunity which we identified, and we built a good business on co-living. But I think the real test of our business came during COVID time. Now, during COVID, what we realized is that the entire co-living, at least about 70% of our tenants, many of them went back to their own places. Now, which basically meant that there was a steep drop in the revenue, the cost remained the same. So the question is that if you had continued with the same model, I think we would have collapsed. So that was, I think, a turning point. So at that point, before COVID started, just to give you a sense, we were 80% co-living and 20% family. So when COVID happened, singles went home and families stayed put. So this is where we realize that let us build a business not for good time, let us also build it for bad times. And I think that's the reality of any business. It goes through good and bad. And keeping the investment amount that we've raised, because we've just raised about 1.3 million. So we have to use it as prudently as we could. So what we did
It's interesting. So a lot of young kids went back home. A lot of the families said, hey, I can't go back. I have a young family, perhaps a couple of children maybe, and they wanted homes. Is it talk about that entire COVID-19 time frame when you decided, okay, March was when it hit India. How was time frame for you, and how did you shift to that 20% that became 100% now?
No, so before COVID, we were 80% co-living and 20% family. And after COVID, we are at about 50-50. So now let me tell you what happened during this time. I think the first fundamental behavior was most of the co-living tenants, at least about 70% of them, they went back home, right? And then, of course, some of them came back, etc. And I would say maybe half of them have returned back, but it's not come back to 100%. So, and it was very clear because they wanted to be close to their families, they wanted to be at home, there were so many other constraints, etc. On the other hand, if you look at families stayed put. In fact, families realize that the life revolves at home, whether it's your social life, whether your family life, whether your personal life, whether your work. So interestingly, families started looking for bigger places and better places. So they all said that, I don't mind paying another 10,000 rupees and maybe upgrading from a 2 bedroom to a 3 bedroom. There are families who upgrade from 3 bedroom to 4 bedroom. So there was a natural peak in demand. And one thing where we always were different than our competitors, Vishal, is we always focused on good quality inventory. We just did not believe in just picking any random inventory. And because we had good inventory, it was just a matter of repurposing many of these inventories. So finally, what happened during COVID, post-COVID, was that we became 50-50. And one more very important element in our business, which we had kind of underplayed, was around asset management or physical asset management. Remember, every building requires maintenance so that the value of the asset increases or probably remains the same. And many of the properties had been with us for a very long time. Many properties that we'd been acquiring, they were not in the best condition. So we realized that this was a very interesting line of business which we could build on. So we started building on that. So suddenly what we realized is that the mix of co-living family had changed, and second, the property management came in. And 21-22 was a fairly nice year for us, where we almost grew by 70% from a revenue perspective. So we realized that I think this is a great model, and now we're looking at transforming this and moving ourselves one step above, where we become an asset management, where we ourselves as an operator. But there are so many other operators who don't have a technology platform. There are so many operators who don't have the right process. They don't have the right accounting systems. So these are operators who could easily fold under us, and we could work with them. And this gives us the ability to scale very easily beyond Bangalore and Pune, where we are currently operating. And the cost of scaling also comes down drastically. So it's like a blueprint for a full-blown scalable model into multiple square feet. So this is how we're looking at it. And one last point is that even the metrics which we started chasing also have changed over the last. For example, when 3 years ago, 4 years ago, when we would have had a conversation, our conversation was more around number of beds, right? We realized that that's not the right metric for us. Our right metric for us is asset under management. So today we talk about 1 million square feet worth 400 crores. So there are so many new metrics, and during the course I will talk in more detail. But fundamentally, the lens through which we are
I'm glad, because I want you to talk about this. Because in the introduction, I quoted the Collier's report, which focuses only on beds. You're saying that the metrics has to change, right? I want you to link the next question to the why it moved from beds to other operating measures. I want you to talk about the parameters that you want to measure, and why the future of work is linked to living. If you can combine the two, it'll be great. And why parameters have to change, complete measurement parameters. What do these investors look for when they look at a business such as yours, which now you're an operating system, because let me not say aggregated, you've covered the demand side and the supply side. Go on.
So if you look at a business like us, I think the right metric is asset under management, which is AUM. Now, asset under management is square feet and value of the asset. Because at the end of the day, when you start looking at a lot of these products, they are looked at as a financial product. And the economic return of a financial product is nothing but your rental yield and capital appreciation. So the minute you start looking at it, I think it makes sense. To me, I think beds could just be a hotel business. Probably in hospitality, hotel is the right word to use. Asset under management is the right metric. The second important metric to look at is order book. Now, remember, here it's not just a question of number of beds. It's also your utilization. I mean, if I have 1 lakh beds and if 50,000 beds are empty, I mean, it doesn't really help me in any way. In fact, I'm running a loss-making business. Right? It's like having a fleet of cars and nobody's really, there's no takers for the car. So basically, it is your utilization of this thing which is important. So order book becomes important because order book ensures that you have long-term commitment from your asset owners who say that, okay, look at the business over the next 5 years, 7 years, and so on. That's the second very critical number. And third, I think is utilization, which I was just talking to you, because utilization gives you a sense that, yes, are these just at a project stage? Are they just getting booked? Or are they actually generating rental yield? So there is a change in the way a lot of people are looking at it. And that's why if you very closely observe, in the media, you would see that I think people aren't talking too much about just beds. They're starting to look at new metrics and so on. And I think we are also in the process of kind of charting out that future. So that's how it is.
How do you link this to the future of work?
Yeah. Now, future of work, if you look at it, I think it is very clear that future is going to be a hybrid. I mean, I think from whatever we are reading, seeing, it's going to be a hybrid. Now, the question is, what will be the shape and form of the hybrid model? I think everybody has an opinion and a view. But in my personal view, I think it's going to be somewhere like a 50-50. Now, what does that mean? It means you still need to be close to your office, right? Because your infrastructure is not going to change drastically. And all of us know that who are living in cities. B, your home cannot just be a place where you go and sleep. I think this is one big shift that has happened, I think, before and after COVID. Before COVID, there were tenants who would say, just give me a place. It doesn't matter because I'm going to party outside. I'm going to work out in my office. I just need a place where I'm going to retire. Now people have realized that there could be chances where you're spending a month in in your house, you're working, you're taking calls, etc. And remember, there is so much of transition going on. I mean, look at the attrition rates in most companies. So which basically means that people are working, studying, preparing for the next venture. There's so many things people are doing. To do that, you need a productive place, and your answer cannot be coffee shops. You need to do this at home or around your home. So this is where I think some of your work is going to get carried over to your home. Your office space requirements are going to come down. So I think what we are seeing is the demand for better homes, bigger homes, work from home friendly homes is just going up significantly, and that will be the trend moving forward.
Okay, my biggest question to you now is that, okay, when you started transitioning real estate management company, did you have to do a lot of branding around this because people know you for something? And how did you have to convince investors that there is this larger pie that I can go after than just what we were doing in the past? Were they okay with it?
So this is a natural journey that we are going through, right? This is, I won't say at this point we have totally, we are there, but this is a larger direction in which we are moving. So if you really look at it, I think the family part is something which we've already spoken to our investors. We have spoken out in the market. So if you look at all my last few interviews, we've been talking about it. But the larger opportunity where we become a real estate asset management company also stems from the fact that we build a full-blown tech platform, like a multi-asset tech platform. So that anyway gives us the advantage. So it's a journey, Vishal. I think I think there is more merit in it, and the inspirations are coming more from, I would call it like a CBREs or JLLs of those kinds than like a traditional only being an operator. So it's like operator plus multiple things. So I think that's how I would kind of be.
As an entrepreneur, you yourself studied in a small town, Vizag, very well known. Now it's big. Obviously, Andhra is promoting Vizag a lot. How is the sociology of this land changing, Prabhat? Where are we heading in terms of people coming into big cities? Because you're doing Bangalore, Pune. I want to know how many cities do you want to go to, okay, with this operating system that you have. Where will people work? Where will they work out of their? I've seen people who worked out of places like Guntur, but they were serving clients in Bangalore, right? They may want to have better living in Guntur. Maybe they want, but they don't have any option but to live with their parents. I want you to bring out the sociology. How is India changing in terms of, let's say, movement of people contributing to economic growth? Will it happen from big cities or will it be spread out? And therefore, your operating system will fit any city, any place?
Well, that's a very pertinent question. And if you really look at it, what COVID has done is COVID has changed the normals, right? Before it was all about Bangalore, Delhi, Bombay, those 4, 5, 6 cities. I think what COVID has done is COVID has given people a chance to go back, work from their homes. And I think the question is whether is it going to be in this end of the spectrum or that end of the spectrum, which is working from these 6 cities, or is it going to be working from maybe 25 cities? And to me, I think the answer lies somewhere in between, which probably is in the larger interest of the nation as a whole. Fundamentally, because your load on cities needs to come down, right? You just have too many people, spending more time just going to office and coming back from office than actually working. That is point number one. Second, with today's world, right? It's a flat world. I think if there's no, I mean, you could be from a small town and you could probably be the brightest or the programmer or developer or whatever. Like even today, we have a few people from our team who do not work from Bangalore. They work from some, smaller place, and they do a brilliant job. So I think what is going to happen now is the future is going to be people working in both these setups, and I feel that a lot of services will get delivered from smaller places. It will start with maybe in the lower end of the spectrum, and gradually it will go up, because a lot of things, for example, like digital marketing, we are beginning to see there are people doing it from various places. We don't even know. I mean, I had a very interesting video content that was created by someone, and this guy was sitting out of a very remote location. And I was like, wow. And the guy created a great product. So today, it just does not matter. So I think the future is heading more in that direction. And I feel it, remember, it's not just about India, tier 1 cities and tier 2 cities, right? Because your clients are sitting not even in India. In many cases, the clients are sitting outside. Now, guy, if your client is sitting in the US, whether you're working out of Bangalore or you're working out of Vizag or you're working out of Guntur for that matter, it really does not matter to the guy, right? He's looking at it. So the focus is also shifting now on performance parameters, right? It's shifting heavily on tools. I mean, look at our interviews. I mean, today, I mean, last interview we probably did was face to face, maybe in one of the offices. But today, I mean, it's a Sunday afternoon. We can comfortably do this over Zoom and so on. So as long as technology supports and as long as the capability exists, I think a lot of it can be done. And that's the direction which I think things are moving. Okay. Now, coming back to our model, I think fundamentally what we've realized is that we've built something which is common across Bangalore and Pune. So we operate in Bangalore and Pune today. There are about close to 400 properties. So what we do is we build a technology platform and have built an operations engine. Future of growth is not going to be about setting full-blown teams in each of these cities. I think it's going to be setting up very light teams. In fact, when we add new cities, I don't think we are even envisioning more than 2-3 people. So the questions, we may not even need an office. So just get 2-3 people started, hook them well into the central office, and give them all the necessary support. So which means our job of scaling now is much, much simpler. You don't need heavy duty teams in various cities and so on.
I like the way, I mean, one thing I want to talk about is to our audience is you've always been positive. I mean, is it because all entrepreneurs have to look at it with hope? And, I'll tell you what, because you're in a segment which is yet to take off, right? It is a segment waiting to be discovered. But how's the last 6 years been for you in terms of struggles? Did a lot of people come and say this won't work? A lot of people, especially in the startup world, a lot of people, I go through it as a founder now. A lot of people say things won't work. People just come out in the open and just say it, that look, it won't work. I mean, and it's not as if you've asked them money. It's just that they want to come say it. And how do you handle those things? Your struggles. I want to know your struggles. How did you conquer them? And where are you heading? How much runway do you have for the next fundraise? How are you going to do this? How strong are you to take this forward?
I think what is very important is to have very strong fundamentals on which you operate. And as I said, when you're running a startup, it's about looking at upside as well as downside. So if you can, prepare for the downside and also focus on your upside, I think you're okay. I think we've had a very interesting run. COVID, of course, did make it difficult, and I think I told you about some of the stuff that we did during COVID, etc. And I think the way we are now looking at it is we've charted out our growth path. So basically today, as I said, we're at about 1 million square feet that we're managing. At an annualized revenue run rate, we are at about 1.5 million, which gives us a lot of comfort. Order book is sitting at about close to 10 million, and our sales pipeline is at about 40-50 million. Now, we have signed up some very large partnerships. So a lot of our growth has happened from retail owners, which are basically people who own one homes or two homes or three homes. But now what we have done is we've partnered with what we call asset owners. We call them propcos. They own like 100 properties, 200 properties, or developers. And we just signed very large such partnerships, which typically gives us access to more than 100 properties, 200 properties at one shot. And we're looking at 5 years, 7 years, and so on. So I think our fundamentals are fairly strong. And what we are doing at this point of time is we are raising, I would call it like a pre-series A round. The main reason of raising this is to make sure that we make that big transition, which we are trying to do, and set the foundation of something even bigger. And we do have some runway. We have a few months, and we do have some good commitments from people. We are in the process. I think in the next few weeks, we should hopefully close it and then move on. So I think if we can continue doing what we are doing for the next, I would say 12 to 18 months, I think we have set ourselves for something very large. I mean, at this point itself, if you look at it from a million, we are looking at least the journey for the next 5 to 10 million square feet. So that's like 100 to 250 crore kind of a revenue business.
Okay. Quick question. How did you handle some of the struggles in the last 6 years? How did you conquer them? What could it be? In 30 seconds, if you can answer.
No, I think the biggest struggle probably was during the COVID times. And I think COVID was one time where it really made us look very hard at our business. And remember, one big learning for me during COVID was that, of course, you have to keep tweaking your business, right? Which goes without saying. But second, the importance for cash flow management, right? I mean, many of us just look at business from a GMV or revenue. To me, GMV means nothing. Revenue means something. And profit is even more. But cash is reality. So if you start looking at it from a cash perspective, and if you're able to ensure the cash velocity is maintained, so that has been a big learning. And I think COVID basically taught us the importance of cash management. But otherwise, there have always been ups and downs. I think it doesn't bother me beyond a certain point, right?
Good to know.
I mean, I just move on with it,
And your biggest support are your children and your wife?
Absolutely. They've been big support. Wife has been, I've always been going back to her for ideas, thoughts, support. And yeah, I mean, family keeps you more grounded. Been lucky with very good friends. And I always go back, consult them. Our alumni is also very solid. Stanford alums. We do meet up on social events. We talk about ideas. And what I've realized very interestingly is that a lot of the challenges which I would be going through is very similar to everybody. I mean, in the sense, most entrepreneurs, they just go through the same challenge. And the reality is that today, most people talk only about fundraise. But remember, there's so much more to it than just fundraise. And I think it's important to enrich and learn from each other's experiences. And I think it just made me better, the entire
and stronger, experience. Of course, and stronger.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, your 30-second guide to happiness. My last two questions, and let's see how it pans out. 30-second guide to happiness and books and documents that you would recommend.
Yeah. So the way I would look at happiness is that, you need to really balance between work and family and friends. And to me, traveling, especially in India and abroad, I've been doing a lot of travel in my past, and that really keeps me relaxed and sane. And hanging around with friends and family, that gives me a lot of joy. So I do that, just to stay happy and relaxed. And
books and documentaries.
Yep. So books, I do read, but I don't read too much. But whatever I read with high intensity. Execution is a great book that I love by Ram Charan. There's one more lovely book called The First 90 Days by Michael Watkins. Brilliant. Very, very well written. There's one more called What Got You Here Won't Get You There, by Marshall Goldsmith, or Iceberg is Melting by John Cotter. So these are some of the books, which can be applied in multiple contexts that have really shaped me. And other than this, I do watch a lot of Netflix and all the other stuff. I mean, I just
Keeps you
keep my
safe.
mind. Yeah, absolutely.
So, ladies and
Yeah.
gentlemen, this is Prabhat of Your Own Room. If you are a property owner, get onto his platform. And obviously, if you're looking for rooms or homes for your family, check out Your Own Room. What's the website again, Prabhat?
Yeah, it's www.yourownroom.com. So it's pretty simple.
Simple as that,
Yeah.
guys. Thank you so much, Prabhat. Lovely talking to you.
My pleasure. Thank you, Vishal. Thanks for inviting me, and lovely speaking to you.